Today is section 10.6. We're doing radical equations. We're going to, for our objectives, solve radical equations and use models that are radical functions to solve problems. So let's look at example 1. And the biggest thing about radical equations is we're talking about square roots for the most part, but you also got cube roots, and I'll show you one of those. And we need to know what cancels out a square root, which we have discussed before. What cancels out a square root is a squared, and when we get to cube roots, it'd be a cubed, and when we get to fourth root, it'd be a fourth power. So the one thing you have to do is get whatever's underneath the square root by itself on one side of the equation. So I can see in example 1, I got 2x plus 3, that's underneath my square root, and it's by itself on the left side, so I can do this problem from here. What I do is I square both sides, and you square that whole thing, and then you're going to square the 5, and the square root will cancel out with the squared, and I'll just get 2x plus 3, and 5 squared is 25. And now it's just a problem like you did in Algebra 1. You'd subtract 3, 2x equals 22, divide by 2, x equals 11. It's that simple. Try your checkpoint. When you're done, I will give you the answer. Okay, checkpoint 1. Whoops, we didn't need that. Checkpoint 1 is x equals 20. Let's look at the next example on the next. Okay, now I got this up too high. All right, solving a radical equation. Example 2. The same rule applies that I said before. We got to have what's underneath the square root on the one side of the equal sign by itself. So that means I got to get rid of this plus 6 before I can get rid of that square root by squaring. So the first thing I would do is subtract 6 from each side. That would get me the x minus 3, the square root of x minus 3 by itself on one side. My 6's will cancel. 5 minus 6 is negative 1. And now I'm able to square and get rid of my square root. So I'm taking this thing and I'm squaring, and I'm taking my negative 1 and I'm squaring. I'm putting the negative 1 in parentheses. The reason why is because if you're punching it in a calculator, the only way you're going to, on most calculators, not all of them, but the only way you're going to get negative 1 to become positive like it's supposed to, or whatever negative number we're doing, you got to square that negative 2. And so we've got x minus 3 equals negative 1 squared is positive 1. Then we add 3, Algebra 1 stuff, and we get 4. Try your checkpoint. When you come back, I'll give you the answer. All right, checkpoint 2. The answer is x equals 26. Let's look at a couple more examples. A little bit different problems. Cube root. We have the cube root of 3x plus 4 equals 7. The same rule applies. I have to have the cube root of 3x by itself before I'm going to do what cancels out a cube root, which is cubing it, raising it to the third power. So, but first I got to get rid of this plus 4. Subtract 4 from each side. You get cube root of 3x equals, the 4's cancel out, 7 minus 4 is 3. Now I can get rid of the cube root by raising it to the third power on each side. That gives me, the cube root cancels with the third power, gives me 3x equals 3 to the third is 27. And then I divide by 3. X equals 9. Let's look at example 3b here. Okay, we have square root on here, but we have this other thing, 2x minus 3, on this side, raised to the 1/2. Well, we've dealt with rational exponents. Remember, fractions and exponents are called rational exponents. We've dealt with that before. We have to change it. Change it to a root, a radical change it to a radical. So we've got square root, because raising something to the 1/2 is the same as square root of 2x minus 3. Remember, the number on the bottom tells me what root it is, and the number on top means what power we raise it to. So we'd be raising it to the first power, which means we're not really doing anything to it. We can just leave it as square root of 2x minus 3. And now I have a radical on either side. And in this case, as long as they're separated, there's a square root on each side, we can cancel out both square roots by just squaring each side. And what we'd get is, if I do it over here, I'd get 2x. I don't want to put equals there because we already got an equals in there. I'm going to put it over here. 2x minus 3 equals x plus 10. Not negative. There. Equals x plus 10. And we're going to solve for x. We got an x on each side. If you remember your Algebra 1, first thing you do is combine the x's, and you should know that you want to move the smaller number of x and subtract it, in this case, subtract it from the larger number of x's. So we're going to move the x by itself, which is just 1x. Subtract that. These two cancel out. 2x minus 1x is x minus 3, and we just get a 10 on this side. And we add 3, and x equals 13. That's all for 10-6. I will see you in class for your homework.